Hey everyone, it's Bradley. Welcome back to the channel. Portly gentlemen, it is great to have you here today. Research it, mash it, boil it, ferment it, drink it, analyze it, share it. Home brewing is good. Today's video is all about CIP cleaning in place of Unitank fermenters. I'm talking about the highest end, the stainless steel, the best stuff, the easiest way to clean it in my humble opinion, because I've seen a couple videos recently, or at least one, and some of the advice, well, I think it made the process look a lot harder and more daunting than it actually is. And some of the utensils and stuff, I believe, could actually scratch the mirror polish on certain stainless steel fermenters, and this is something that is less than ideal. Also, and this is a big also, I did something really stupid, and I made a really big mess, and I've got it on camera. So if you want to see that, you're going to have to watch to the end. All right, you will notice that I have my drain connected and I'm going into a 5-gallon bucket. So I pulled off the pressure chamber. First step I do is I pull out the floating dip tube and the pressure pack assembly. Basically, I will add this in later on, which you will see. Now I take my garden hose and I turn it on the highest pressure stream essentially, and I will spray those front ports. I just kind of do it blindly. Sometimes I'm more thorough than others. In this instance, I was kind of in a rush because we're filming, but it definitely gets the job done. But the purpose here is to get the gunk out of the ports. Next, it's time to get ready for the CIP ball, and this is all part of my pre-rinse. Next, I hook up to basically my house water pressure, somewhere around 60 pounds here in the States, and I give it several pulses with the CIP ball and the mains water just to get any of the big debris loose, anything loose that's in there. And here I am trying to show you guys, and I just go into a bucket. So yeah, some debris comes out. That first time I got all the big chunks, and depending on what's gone on, obviously this tank was evacuated under high pressure, as you will see later on. Next up, it's time to add hot water. In this 7-gallon tank, I usually do 2 gallons. I keep it minimal cleaner. It just makes everything a little bit easier. Keep in mind, my tap water is about 140 degrees Fahrenheit in the brewery. And there is some, obviously, the glycol jacket has glycol in it. It's room temperature, so this cools down. I think during the process, I run about 110 and about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Is typically where I sit at CIP. And this time I'm using liquid PBW. I actually prefer the powder to liquid. I don't think the bang for the buck on the liquid is there, although liquid is quite convenient. It's much easier to store, but just the cost to me is prohibitive, personally. And that's it. I drop on a gasket and the CIP ball and all that, tighten up the tri-clamp, and then it's just really simple. Remember, not much scrubbing is involved by hand in my method on account of I'm pretty lazy. Everybody knows that by now. So then it's just a matter of kicking on my spike pump, and I do enjoy this pump. It's got a really high flow and some other interesting features that just make it good for what we're doing here at CIP. I will usually let the CIP spin for about 30 minutes, maybe a little longer. If I'm doing something else, I might get sidetracked, but 30 minutes is absolutely plenty. At that point, just turn the pump off, and I'm using one of the nice features, which is that dump on the spike pump here, and that lets me get everything out without making a mess. Again, I don't like messes, even though sometimes I make a mess, but I just go into one of my beloved Morebeer buckets. Use these things for everything around the brewery. I highly recommend you pick one up. They hold about 6 or 7 gallons, 6 gallons, and they're just super useful. So I do save all of that PBW solution. Before I start stripping the tank down, you'll see I just switch buckets and I'm running another high pressure water rinse. This is to rinse the vessel of PBW and cleaner and get anything else that may have been stubborn in and out. And I'll do this 3 or 4 times. I'll usually rinse with about 5 gallons of water. So my process is relatively water intensive, using probably around 12 gallons to do this, maybe 15 gallons, but to me it's worth it and not a big deal. Your mileage, however, may vary. That's for sure. But you see it's coming out clean. The tank is clean. Now it's time to break it down. I do not soak the actual pressure gauge. I'll clean the bottom of that with hot water and maybe a scrub daddy or something. Definitely nothing abrasive like one of those green sponges. I do not want to scratch the finish. This mirror polish is there for a very good reason. I will also throw in the spooning valve. I will take the plastic kind of liquid holder off of that, but I'll strip the whole tank. You see, everything is clean as can be, but I'll let these all soak in the bucket of the cleaner I just used. You'll notice here when I pull off the thermal well, there's a tiny bit of gunk on that guy that is just, you know, it was there, it was stubborn. I should have been a little more critical of my rinsing and a little more aggressive and thorough, but I wasn't. But I'll show it to you right now, just to be honest. That's all that's left there. And it's just a tiny little bit of hops and other schmegma, and it's unfortunate, but again, not a big deal. Once I get this guy to focus, I'm gonna throw it in the bucket. I don't care. It's just a little bit of crap that's stuck on there. Big deal. So let it go on the bucket and soak. Look at the front ports. Perfectly clean. Nothing in them. They're ready to rock literally right now. Next, I will pop off the valve. And, you know, the underside of the valve can be a little bit dirty. In this instance, I didn't think it was bad. Again, in the bucket. The next up will be the heating element. The heating element is another one I don't soak. This is one that I will scrub if need be, but as you can see, it's perfectly clean. There's nothing, no gunk on it, and it's literally that simple. So I will go ahead now and get the floating dip tube and other various things, the flex chamber, and then I'll try and weight stuff down so it sinks. I also added about a gallon of extremely hot water into this to heat it back up, and I added a little bit more PBW to keep the ratio right for that now 3 gallons. Here's the inside of the vessel. The lighting isn't the best, but it's clean. I haven't disturbed the mirror finish. Again, they went through a lot of trouble to get a polish this good, so scratching it just isn't on the menu for me, nor should it be for you. All right, so we are gonna jump right in to how I made a giant mess. And I'm gonna start with, you know, I'm obviously doing this for YouTube, and I was gonna film my whole process, and I was literally like, okay, I started to pull the PRV to vent the Unitank like I always do, and I said, oh, wait a minute, I want to film this, so I stopped, and I grabbed the camera and got ready, and then totally forgot about the PRV, and I left the vessel pressurized. This is something that is very, very dangerous, to be honest. It's not a laughing matter. You know, I ruined a camera lens. My camera got dirty. It still works, clearly. I made a giant mess. It took me hours to clean. But I'm gonna show you what I did, and basically I loosened I was gonna try and dump the flex chamber, gonna let a little bit of material out so when it drops down from that 3-inch valve on the X3, it doesn't plop and get everywhere and make a big mess. Really like to avoid messes. Well, you know me, I forgot it was under pressure, and you better believe I pulled that fitting off, and as we're watching this, you can see what happens. It's just a giant mess. I was very disheveled after this happened. I have some video on my phone, excuse the aspect ratio of it, but it's just, man, it was everywhere. It took forever to clean, and it was just horrible. So moving on, live and learn, safety first, always depressurize your vessels. Double, triple check, you know, it's one of those things. If this would have been a blank, like an 1.5 inch blank, and I would have opened it on the top or towards myself, it could have hit me and caused serious bodily harm. To be honest with you, so these are not toys when they're under pressure. Handled right, they're perfectly safe, but when you're dumb, they bite you in the ass. Like I mentioned earlier, before we're done, guys, one of the things is, you know, I've seen someone use a green scrub pad, and, you know, they all might not be created equal, and some may not scratch, but when you have a tank that has a mirror finish or very fine finish, I really recommend something like a Scrub Daddy. This guy isn't going to scratch stainless steel. It's the softer model as well, which definitely helps. And that is going to get your stuff clean without scratching that mirror polish that the manufacturer has worked so hard to produce. Believe me, it's a ton of work. Another thing, and some may cringe, is a microfiber. I know we don't like to use microfibers, or maybe even this, because it's probably, well, it doesn't smell stinky, but it's full of bacteria, more than likely. I'll only use these when I'm cleaning, and it'll be followed with a full, you know, sterilization rinse. But something like this, if you have to scrub, will work. or even just a microfiber. I'll trash them when I'm done. These are from Costco, just to wipe out anything that is left. But my process itself is something I've done for years on all of my tanks. Right now I have it defined, and I think it's pretty much as good as it can get. This literally takes no physical effort. I'll rebuild the Unitank. As I rebuild it, I'll put all the valves and fittings back on, sanitizing those, and I will leave it for a week or so, and then CIP with a no-foam sanitizer and call it good. If I let it sit much longer, I may choose to rip the whole tank apart again and spray everything with Star San or sanitizer again, but usually I keep them so full that I don't have to wait that long, but that's just my process. I hope this was useful. I hope you've learned something. Hopefully you're not daunted if you've seen other content that depicts it in a manner that's just a lot of fear-mongering and strange, to be honest with me. Yes, these tanks could crush, allegedly, if you have them very hot and you cool them off with cold water or something. In the 7-gallon size, this kind of smaller homebrew size, I really don't think that's likely. Don't quote me on it. Don't do it because I said so. But I've had mine pretty hot and given them cold water. And I think the thickness and the size of the vessel and the surface area has something to do with it. If you look at 7-gallon versus a 7-barrel, 230-gallon vessel, it's very different physics involved. So don't equate that to this. It's not apples to apples, no matter what they tell you. That's just my 2 cents. All right, everybody, so I appreciate you watching. You can tell I've got a brand new Unitank actually over this shoulder. This is one that's new on the market, just right up my alley. You know how I like to have all the new stuff first. And believe me, I still do, because I'm Bradley. That video is also coming out imminently. I'm rushing that one out. It's about done. I just got sidetracked with having to clean everything. All right, guys, so remember, home brewing is good. My name is Bradley, and I'll see you real soon. Now that I've had a moment to compose myself and look at the scope of what I've got to clean, which is hours, pretty much everything, everywhere, really important never to open one of these under pressure.